Hi family, welcome back to my channel. My name is Angela and I have a special video today about foreclosures. Excuse my voice, I have a cold and my voice is breaking. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about foreclosures. Y'all, I just rented a home and found out very shortly after I rented the home that the home was already foreclosed on. So I rented a home, signed a lease, moved into the home, and a couple months later, I find out the home has been foreclosed on. Like it was foreclosed on by the time I was getting signing on the lease. Quick backstory, I reached out to this landlord because I saw the house and I liked it, and I was like, hey, well, I searched up the landlord and called them. So I didn't use a realtor. The typical way is to use a realtor, have somebody look up a house for you and, connect you to a landlord. But I found a house and I called the landlord, and she was like, oh, the house is not available now, but I'll let you know if I have anything coming up. And long story short, she calls me a couple of weeks later and she says the house is available. And I'm like, yay. Go through the correct channels, correct paperwork, sign a lease and all that good stuff, move into the home. And a couple months later, I get a notice at the door talking about cash for keys. And I'm like, what is going on? And needless to say, the landlord is very nervous, but she gives me an answer that I still don't know what the answer exactly was to my questions about what is going on, what is all this cash for keys and foreclosure, legalese on this paper. And she's like, oh, no, it's okay, it's just scammers and all that good stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. But of course, I couldn't go to sleep that night. I'm like, okay, this is weird. Nobody just comes and puts a cash for keys notice or a foreclosure notice on your door just randomly. I don't know, maybe mistakes like that happen, but I figured that does not just happen. Like how? It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. So anyways, I call a realtor agent that I know, and I'm like, hey, can you check this property for me, because I got a notice saying something about cash for keys. And immediately she's like, uh-oh, I think you're in problems. Somebody has not been paying the mortgage, and yeah, I think you may have a problem. And I start to freak out. Long story short, what I should have really done was gone to the tax office and probably checked up this house if it's clear. But typically most people, at least I don't know, me, you don't call up somebody and they're renting you a home complete with a lease. Everything is just like usual, and the house has already been foreclosed on. Like it was not even in foreclosure proceedings. It was already sold to somebody else with a whole new owner. It doesn't typically happen, so that's not something that you would think that would happen. So I didn't think to go to the tax office or call the tax office or try to find out what's going on. Long story short, I rented a home. The home had already been foreclosed on. The landlord says a lot of things, and these other people who are trying to get the property say a lot of things, and it's just all confusing. But the tax office says one thing, the landlord says another thing. Anyway, the moral of this story today, moral of this video today is, I think in this unconventional market that is going on in the real estate world, I think we should probably try to do our due diligence a little bit better. Clearly people can rent your house that's been foreclosed on because they still have access to their home. Maybe, I don't know for what reason, but maybe trying to recoup some money or something. I don't know. But anyways, just because of that, I think it's probably just advisable to use a realtor, because they would really check everything and make sure that the house is clear, it's good to go, that the person you're renting from is the actual landlord, the house is not foreclosed on, and you're renting it from the right person. But which brings me to the next point, where the new owner was offering what is called cash for keys, which is where the owner of a foreclosed property may offer you money. Mostly in most states, it's about I believe it's the deposit plus half of 1 month's rent for you to move out, so they don't have to evict you, because it's cheaper for the landlord, for the new owner, to really pay you some money to move out, as opposed to them to drag you to court and go evict you, and it would save them some time. But overall, it's just cheaper to give you money to move out voluntarily. And also it helps you as a tenant who's probably innocent. It kind of helps you maybe, move out. So that's essentially, that is cash for keys right there. So anyways, what should you do? I'm sorry, I'm going to look at my phone. I have some notes I'm taking on my phone. But I went up and looked at, after I found out that I have a house that's been foreclosed on that I am living in. I went and looked it up, and, so it doesn't happen to me again. But I found out, if you find out the house or apartment that you're renting goes into foreclosure, really, it's good to know your rights anyway. So I would look for notices at the door, notices in the mail, any notices talking about any notices about the property being in foreclosure, any notices from lawyers, any notices from the I guess even from the police department, sheriff's department, because they're the people who would evict, I believe. I've never been evicted before, so I don't know. But you may want to consult an attorney if you may want to consult an attorney, because you're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place, because you're a tenant and you're caught between someone's fight. But anyways, you look for notices of that possible foreclosure, and then ask a lot of questions. They'll be posted at your door, so they will assume that you got the notices. So in these uncertain times, I would be on the lookout for anything, really anything. I would open all your mail. Don't throw out mail without looking at it. And then, since you're going to probably get confusing information from your landlord, I would ask a lot of questions. Ask the landlord, ask the people who are sending you notices, call them up and ask them questions. And if people are offering you like that cash for keys, or anybody who's coming to you saying that the new owner, I would ask plenty of questions and check with the city. And check with the city and see, like, the auditor, the land assessors, or the recorders, or I forget what other names they're called, that you can call the tax office, basically your local tax office. You call them up and you find out who the owner of the property is, for starters. And also, because this is public information, you probably may want to look at court filings against your landlord, because if there's a foreclosure that's been going on, the new owner probably has taken your landlord to court. So you may want to look out for that. That might be a good indication that the property you're living in has a problem. It's been foreclosed on, or is in foreclosure. So you may want to call the local courthouse and ask some questions, because as a tenant you have some right. Also, if your landlord rather is paying utilities, if they're not paying the mortgage, probably they're not paying the utilities as well. You may want to maybe call up and find out, because you might end up in 100-degree weather and your air has been cut off. So you may want to call the utility service and make sure you don't get caught. You may want to call the utility company and just make sure that you're not going to get the air cut off. You might have little kids. You may have old people in the house. So you may want to just make sure that the utilities are not cut off. Also, I would suggest, highly, if a house is on foreclosure, I would suggest probably moving, because the new owner may want to get possession of their property. They may not want to rent out the property again. They probably may want to move into the property. But mainly, that property probably is is in the middle of a litigation, you don't want to be caught in between all that mess. So most likely, your best bet would be to just move. I mean, you have rights to a certain amount of days to move. I mean, those letters that send you the notices, they're pretty scary. Like they're telling you need to move out in 3 days or something like that. But just call the people on those notices and see how much time they can give you extra to move, because as a tenant you have rights. I mean, I believe most states you have up to 90 days actually that you can request an extension of up to 90 days to move. So you may want to call the new owner after you've determined that the new owner is truly the new owner by calling your tax office and finding out who the actual owner is. You may want to call up the new owner and negotiate and see if it can give you an extension to move out, because most likely you're caught unawares and you're caught unprepared. So you may want to negotiate and see if they can give you any money to move out, which is the cash for keys per se, and they might give you also some time, money and time to move out, because again, you were not prepared for this. You didn't call for this. It wasn't your fault. You're paying your rent, but somebody's not paying their mortgage. It has nothing to do with you. So you can always negotiate. But just be aware that if your landlord was not paying their mortgage, chances are you will not get your deposit back. So if they don't give you your deposit back or any money that you paid to them while the house was already in foreclosure, you may choose to seek legal action to get your money back. I don't know how far that will go, but that you have a right to actually file to get your money back, because you just got caught in the middle of a problem that is not your problem, because you've been paying rents and now you have to pick up and get out, pretty much. But long story short, it is diligent to do your due diligence and probably make sure that the house or apartment you're trying to move into is clear, because in this right now there's a lot of foreclosures going on. People took on too much that they could handle, and now they're stuck with these big bills that they can't pay. They're stuck with these big bills to the banks that they can't pay, and they're being foreclosed on. And unfortunately, a lot of tenants are gonna get caught in the middle of all that mess. But and a few people like me might get caught in the middle of a difficult situation where you rent a house that's already been foreclosed on. Like the house already has been foreclosed on. The old landlord has no business renting it out to you, basically. But it's a tough situation, but I think it's something that I didn't think would ever happen. But now that it's happened and I know it could happen, guess what? I learned my lesson for now and forever, because I don't think I'll ever be caught with my pants down like that again. So, I mean, with that said, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video, and be diligent.